Today's video is about solving equations, but it's not going to be the same things that we were doing on the last video. These are going to be special scenarios where we can do things a little bit differently. Okay, so number 11, this is going to be our first example. It tells us to solve the equation. So this one starts just like what we have always been doing. So let's just see where it takes us. We'll distribute first. Distribute first. So we'll get 1 plus 3c equals 5 minus 5c plus 8c. Then we need to combine like terms on each side. So we'll get 1 plus 3c equals 5 plus 3c. And then we want to move our variables to one side. So we're going to subtract 3c from both sides, and that's going to give us 0. But on this side, it also gives us 0. So we're actually just left with 1 equals 5. So in the case where all your variables disappear, you'll get to something that looks like this. And you have to ask yourself, is this true? Okay? If it is true, so we have two answers. If it is true, then the answer is all real numbers. That is the symbol for all real numbers. You need to be able to recognize it if you don't already. All real numbers. That means that no matter what you plug in for that variable, it will absolutely be correct. If it's not true, which is our case, 1 equals 5 is not a true statement. So it is not true. That means there is no solution. And that symbol that I drew means no solution. It's just a circle with a big slash through it. Okay, so like I said, if this is true, then it's all real numbers. If it's not true, then it's no solution. In our case, this is not true. So the answer is no solution. The next little section that we look at is called proportions. And with proportions, that's when you have two fractions equal to each other. And when we have two fractions equal to each other, we can do what's called cross multiplication. So this is where we have 5 times x plus 4. And when you have more than one thing, it has to go in parentheses, equals 3 times 2. And you could have this in either order. You can swap. It could be 3 times 2 equals 5 times x plus 4. That's also correct, okay? There we go. But anyway, so we've cross multiplied, and now it just looks like every other thing that we've been solving. So we're going to distribute that, and I'm going to go ahead and multiply those together. So we're going to get 5x plus 20 equals 6. And then we subtract 20 from both sides. That gives us 0. We get 5x equals negative 14. Divide both sides by 5. And we will get x equals negative 14 fifths. And 14 fifths does give us a decimal that has an end to it. So you can use the decimal version as well. The next section of the worksheet talks about literal equations, and literal equations are equations that are made up of like lots of variables, and every part has an important meaning to the meaning of the equation. For example, this is the formula for the circumference of a circle. So this says circumference equals 2 pi times radius. So this asks us to solve for pi. And what that means is that we want to take this equation and put it in the form of pi equals something. So let's look at how we can get pi by itself. Pi is being multiplied by 2 and multiplied by r. So if we were to divide both sides by 2r, these 2's would cancel and these r's would cancel. And that would leave us with pi by itself. And over here, we would just have it written as c over 2r. Now, since we're solving for pi, we want to have pi on the left side of the equation. So we're just going to swap the sides. And we're going to write it as pi equals circumference over 2 times the radius. And that's our answer. You don't have to solve and get a number. This just is changing the form of the equation, basically. So let's try another one of those. This one asks us to solve for b. So we want to get this equation in the form of b equals something. Okay, so first let's multiply both sides by c. And so those two c's will cancel and we'll be left with a plus b equals 5c. And then we're trying to get b by itself, so we're going to subtract a from both sides. And that's going to give us b equals 5c minus a. Because c and a are not like terms, so we can't combine those. So this is just going to be our final answer. And here's our last example for today. We want to solve this equation for the letter v. So we're adding w to v, but then we're multiplying by 1/2. So if we multiply both sides by 2, 2 times 1/2 is just 1. So that will cancel that out. And we'll be left with w plus v on this side. And whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So we'll have 2 times 7w, which is 14w. Then we want to subtract w from both sides. We get 13w equals v. But we want it in the form of v equals. So v equals 13w. That'll be our final answer. Thanks for listening.